Hey folks, it's Phil from Seachoice. Today we're going to be doing an electronic fuel pump replacement on my friend's airboat here. As you come over here, you can see that he has an existing electronic fuel pump manufactured by Facet. It's clearly printed on there. And fortunately for him, Seachoice stocks the direct replacement. So we're going to simply prepare the wiring, prepare the fittings. So all we have to do is switch the old one out and replace it with the new one. Side by side so you can see just how identical they are. The Seachoice fuel pump does come with instructions that we have here, along with some of the fittings that you're going to want. So we'll be able to replace brand new fittings onto it. And then with that, there's a couple different fuel lines that are going in and out of this fuel pump. And what we have also is the brand new Seachoice fuel lines that are added this year in 2022, 2023. So we'll just walk through the wiring setups, the fuel line setups, and the various hardware that we'll be replacing on this. It's pretty straightforward, but we'll just take it slow and walk you right through it. To be able to detach the old fuel pump, I'm going to remove these hose clamps. All right, so with a little force, I was able to get those fuel lines off. Here's the wire that's running to the engine. So next, I'll go ahead and I'll snip this wire as low down as it can go. The ratchet's gonna be a little bit hard to fit in there, so I'm just gonna use a wrench. This is a 7/16 wrench. And then once you get it loose, it comes off pretty quickly. That's easy. So remove the old one. Here's our new, let's call it shiny Seachoice model. We're going to go ahead and put new fittings on it. Because we have them, they came with the pump. So I've screwed both those in, finger tight. We'll see how they line up and see if I want to rotate them anymore for a more convenient flow, but brackets line up exactly as they should. So now I'll just put in the new fasteners and tighten this thing down into place. So you can see we've attached the fuel pump tightly to the bracket, and then now we could simply use the existing hose that we have here, and just like it was, bring the hose clamp down, fasten the hose clamp to here, and we would do the same thing on this side here. But because Seachoice has brought on some new hose this year, I figure let's go ahead and replace this 1 foot section of hose, put on some new hose clamps so you can see what that looks like and how simple it is. And then we'll talk to my friend later and see if he wants us to redo all of his fuel lines here. This is the hose we're going to be replacing. Some information on here. Looks like it's Gates fuel line, 3/8, 9.5 millimeters. And what we got over here is the new Seachoice equivalent. So I'll just use this old piece to measure, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it right here so it's about the same length. I don't think we needed any extra for any reason. So we're replacing it here with the, let me get a close-up of that, the SAE, U.S. Coast Guard approved Type A1, Carb Type A1-10. All right, so we've got that end of the hose onto the, I believe that's a fuel water separator. Go ahead and put a hose clamp on here for good measure. So we've attached the old fuel line hose and we put a hose clamp over it. And now we just want to connect this end. There we go. Make the electrical connection from the electric fuel pump to the boat. So right here is where we clip the old wire. There's a little bit of wires being exposed, but I'm going to trim off a little bit more of the plastic covering so I can get more of the wire into the butt connector there. About that much exposed. And then we could use this tool and use the crimping mechanism in this tool, but I prefer to use the ratchet style that we have. So let's go ahead and crimp it there. And then I'll go ahead and take the Seachoice heat, melt the ends around the butt connector. Looking at the directions, you know, it says right here, required item. Pump must be properly fused with a 3 to 5 amp automotive type fuse. So right now our existing wire, 14 gauge wire, does not have an inline fuse. So within the Seachoice offering, I found the indicating fuse holder. This is pretty unique because it actually lights up when the fuse blows. So, you know, if this wasn't like a center console with a bunch of other fuses, you'd know which one popped. So I like to use this one just to kind of show it off and the advantages of a traditional inline fuse. And this wire is 16 gauge and our wire from the pump is actually 14 gauge, but they're in the same class of butt connector. So I won't need to use a step down butt connector. I can use one of the classic blue 1416. And then I also got some Seachoice fuses. This is a 3 amp fuse that we'll end up putting in here once we go ahead and crimp it onto the wire. Here's our wire from the fuel pump. There's actually a good amount of slack in it, so I can be pretty generous when I go ahead and cut this and put the inline fuse in. Then I'll take our inline fuse, which is already pre-cut, so no need to take that plastic off. It's good to go. Next, I'm going to use a 3 amp ATC fuse. Seachoice part number 11373. It's a 5-pack in case you need some extras or you know you have a couple projects to work on. So the light is off. That's a good thing. When the light comes on, you know it's blown. Eventually, we're going to go ahead and clean all this up and tuck it up under here nicely and hidden out of the way. But now you can see where the positive wire is running from the fuel pump up along the boat through this one wire that goes up here to the switch just up there. So with flipping this, I'd hope to hear my fuel pump turn on, but I don't. I'm gonna follow the wires back, but I know my positive wire is leading directly from the fuel pump to this switch, and I know my ignition switch has power. I would press it, but then it will start having the prop back here spin. So I'm gonna check the ground of the fuel pump and start with that first and see if that could be our problem. Putting the ground on this bolt and running this to this part of the motor does complete our circuit. So I'll quickly throw in some ring terminals, wire it correctly, and flip that switch and hope to hear the fuel pump in action. And I'm gonna use this as my grounding point for the fuel pump. We'll go ahead and bolt all these down in a minute. All right, so hopefully I flip the switch here and we can hear the pump turn on. All right, so to wrap up what we did in this video was to replace this old Facet fuel pump with a Seachoice fuel pump. And what we learned along the way was we needed an inline fuse for the positive wire, to protect the entire switchboard up there in case something was to blow, which that wasn't done previously. So we made an improvement there. Then we also learned that grounding it to this bracket alone wasn't enough to complete the circuit. So what we ended up doing was running a ground wire from the same bracket area, from the bolt to a bolt on the engine. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You learned something along the way. I certainly did. It was my first time ever installing a fuel pump. And I thought it'd be much easier, just take the old one out, put the new one in. But we learned some things along the way. I improved my electrical engineering skills, which are non-existent up until today. So thanks again for watching. If there's any questions you have, drop them into the comments below, and we look forward to seeing you out on the glades.